guys were not. You were in. Actually, you were in our preseason.
I was in Portland as well.
I want to cover playoff hockey in Vancouver. I want the fans to enjoy and experience playoff hockey in Vancouver. I want the Canucks to win a Stanley Cup for this city. And looking at Raptors Twitter right now, a fade for Cade. I feel like a lot of them would love to see him there. I mean, I'm not advocating for that, but I mean, I know that's big on Raptors Twitter minds these days.
There's a lot of Twitter warriors out there.
LA gave one out to Jared Goff, and they've already moved on. Correct. They didn't think that could work for them.
It's all good. It's in it. It's in the box.
It's in the box.
Perfect.
For the Unnamed Sports Show, here's your host, Joshua Griffith.
That is correct. This is the Unnamed Sports Show. I am, of course, your host, Joshua Griffith, here on the Sports Talkline Network, where we talk sports 24/7, 365. On today's episode of the show, I'm going to be joined by Sean Warren of Area 51 Network to discuss the latest from the Vancouver Canucks trade deadlines, the Tanner Pearson contract, Jim Benning, and just the latest in general with everything involving the Vancouver Canucks. Before we get into the interview, make sure to hit that like button down at the bottom, comment along with your thoughts about the Vancouver Canucks, and also to subscribe to the Sports Talkline channel if you don't already. So this is a pretty long interview. We went a lot longer than I thought we would, but when you get chatting with someone great about sports and hockey, well, sometimes things get a little bit out of hand. So without further ado, here is my interview with Sean Warren. So we'll get things going. So the man who is responsible for the massive Area 51 network takeover in the last couple of months, you can actually check out my article about everything they're doing, contributing on the Point Shot Hockey podcast, and writer for Canucks Army, making his return to the show, but with notice this time, Sean Warren. What's up, my man? Thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Oh, it's awesome to be back. This time I can actually have my video out for you so we can actually see each other this time. I don't feel like I'm just kind of creeping in the sound waves on you.
and I think I gave you about 20 minutes notice last time, so I think I caught you at work. So
I was at work, but it would have worked out good.
It did. So obviously, I started the show in a pandemic and was asking people their health and families. It kind of became a staple, and we are still here somehow. How are you and your family doing during these times, and as numbers continue to rise?
Good, actually. Like we've been really fortunate with everything. Like I work from home now, so like I just straight up don't see people anymore. But like my wife's got her first dose,
nice.
First vaccine dose. So no, it's been good. Like we've been really fortunate through all of it. So hopefully everybody's able to stay healthy and happy out there through this. I feel like we're almost there, but honestly, it's been a lot longer than I think any of us were anticipating.
Yeah, I think so too, and that's good to hear. And hopefully, we can just kind of get through the rest of this. Everybody can get vaccinated, and we kind of maybe have a normal summer or back to things in the fall. But let's get to some hockey talk, Sean, because that's why I had you on the show, even though we chatted in the green room for about 20 minutes about basketball. But we had the NHL trade deadline come and go on Monday, and it was kind of a slow deadline as predicted. But let's start with the moves that Canucks made. 3 moves. Obviously, Adam Gaudette to Chicago for Matthew Highmore, Ben for the 6th to Winnipeg, and trading a pick, the 4th, for Madison Bowie, and a 5th from Chicago. I keep wanting to say Bowie. I'm disappointed.
Right.
I know I'm disappointed he's not.
Yeah.
What did you the make of the Canucks moves at the trade deadline?
It was kind of it felt like a really lateral deadline. Like it was busier than I expected it to be for them. Like I honestly anticipated 0 deals out of it, especially with the outbreak and all things being considered there. But I guess I would describe it as unsexy Like there was really nothing that you're like, oh, hey, guess what? Like, like if I know, like if the Canucks do anything pretty substantial, I'll text my dad, right, and I'll tell him what's happened. Like there was not, like, what am I going to tell him? Like Jordy Ben got traded for a sixth. Like, Madison Bowie is a Canuck. Like, awesome. He's got 2 NHL games this season. Like Matthew Highmore, who? So like, I don't know. It was kind of an unsexy deadline, but all things being considered and not expecting anything, I can't really say that I'm disappointed or excited by anything that happened. It's just, it happened. I feel like we didn't really improve in any sort of way. We didn't regress in any sort of way. We managed to be busy but not do anything at the same time is kind of my overall take on it. I think the most interesting one is probably the Bowie trade, to be honest, because it ends up kind of opening up a spot for expansion draft, as well as, I mean, the picks are kind of a wash. It doesn't really have any effect there. Madison Bowie being as cheap as he is as well, being able to come in and play really anywhere on the depth chart gives the Canucks some kind of cost certainty moving into next season, where things are going to be really tight again, like even more tight than we've already seen. And to think that the Canucks cap situation has been so tight that they couldn't get Olli Juolevi into a lineup on an ELC. I mean, it's going to get tighter. And so I think it was a shrewd move that way. Do I have any expectations for Bowie? No, absolutely not. Like, I really, like, this guy's 26 years old, has yet to make any sort of substantial mark or have any sort of staying power in the NHL. This dude is not going to move any needles in Vancouver. He is a live body, and Canucks need live bodies on very cheap contracts. So, I mean, in that way, Highmore is in the same position, right? I guess the biggest, and if you are trying to jot down something, it's disappointing that they gave up on Gaudette at the time that they did. Not in general. Like if it was part of their plan to trade him, I have no problem with that. Like he was another guy that wasn't necessarily moving the needle. And I know a lot of people straight up didn't want him traded at all, but the timing of it, his value was so low. Like it's never been lower. But think, like, this is a Hobey Baker winner. This is a guy that put up 33 points last season. This is a guy that had significant value at different points of his career up to this point. And we waited until he had really no value, like less value than the pick used to draft Adam Gaudette in the 5th round to sell on him. And I think that's, if anything, the most disappointing part about it. But I mean, they traded Ben for a draft pick, so woo!
The Canucks got some draft picks, I guess. I mean, realistically, they didn't, because they traded a 4th for a 5th and got Madison Bowie, who, like you said, is literally there to occupy an expansion draft protection spot. And beyond that, I do not see him being with the Vancouver Canucks. The Adam Gaudette trade I found really, really curious, and Matthew Sear and Price kind of reported that there might have been some hostilities in the dressing room with the COVID situation. That seems like it might be the only answer to that, because it is not a very good move if you're evaluating the 2 players on the ice.
No, I totally agree. And you know what? That is a much bigger story if that's the case. And that's something that I think some people have been kind of brushing under the rug a little bit. Just the severity of something like that. Like if this is a matter of, disciplining or some sort of exiling of patient 0, that's really, at this point in the pandemic, like here we are over a year in, this is a highly contagious, highly volatile and dangerous disease that can really be contacted anywhere. To be blamed or have any sort of resentment towards a player, like for that just kind of boggles my mind. But like, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of things, like I've heard people say like he was a distraction, or maybe his streaming had something to do with it, or like it feels like we're grasping at straws for reasons, because it boggles the mind as to why this deal was made. And I mean, first of all, the streaming thing is ridiculous. Elias Pettersson also streams. So like, if we're going to get all up in arms about that, I don't think there's really a precedence for that. As well, like, if it is the COVID thing, I can't understand making decisions like that. That said, like, one thing that Elliot Friedman's been talking about is that the Canucks have been trying to move Gaudette for some time now. It's bizarre to me that they figured that this was the right time. Like, Jim Benning's press conference on it was really interesting, because first off, he like straight up ripped Gaudette. Like he had scathing reviews for his play. Like, he was like, he's okay. He wanted so much better, but he was only okay. We expected better. He was a disappointment. Like it was pretty scathing. Like, I was very surprised that, like, unprompted, the GM just decided to shred this guy on the way out the door.
Yeah.
And it was like, this was the right time. I was like, was it? Like, Matthew Highmore is the right, like, that was the guy. You're like, I liked this guy 4 years ago in college. We better make a move now for this guy. Like, Matthew Highmore has 4 goals on his career. He's played 72 games in his NHL career. Gaudette is certainly more valuable. Like, I can assure you he is a better player than Matthew Highmore, at least ceiling wise. And I don't know. It was a very interesting move, a very interesting sequence of events. And I hope we end up learning a little bit more about kind of what went down behind the scenes as time goes on here, because like you said, it just doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that things will start to trickle in from, different sources. Okay, what was really going on in the locker room? Was Gaudette a problem? Was this a distraction for people? Were they really that mad at this? I mean, but from hearing from, JT Miller today, it didn't sound like that was really the go-to thing that he was mad about for Canucks players, or that even Canucks players were mad about, what, like, the patient zero or how things came about. It was just that they had this and they all had to deal with it.
Yeah, I really liked JT Miller's availability today. I thought that he was very well-spoken, straight shooting as always, classic JT Miller, but just very honest and about everything. And I liked his answer on Gaudette. Like, what do you mean his involvement in all of this? And it's like, that he could have been patient zero. And it's like, who cares where we got it from? We're all sick. Like, who cares?
What? Like,
who cares who got it first? We all got it. Like if we really want to point fingers, like, this is one of the things too that really kind of baffles me as far as like being the notion of being bothered by patient zero is like, the Canucks decided to do that morning skate. Yeah. Even after they had pulled Adam Gaudette off the ice. Like, if they were that concerned, everybody should have been off the ice immediately, right? Like, it should have been immediately, everybody's off the ice, we're testing everybody, right? Instead, they're like shocked come game time that, like, like it was, and even leading up to it, like, I was sitting there with the channel on, ready to watch the game, and thinking to myself, I can't believe they're going to play this game. Like, for all day, I've been baffled that they're going to play. And then it's like, oh, it is canceled. It's like, well, yeah, like, well,
what
are we doing here?
What did you think was going to happen? Like, you literally know, like, is there not a reason that you guys had a bubble last year? Is there not a reason that you guys are taking the necessary health precautions? Like, you literally saw it, I think, like, less than a week after the Colorado Avalanche canceled their morning skate when they had a COVID scare.
Right. Well, and it's just like, I don't understand how they thought reasonably, like they clearly had thought about it. You would have had to, like, do we continue? And they would have been like, yeah, we continue. It's as usual. Gaudette has COVID, but off he goes. We're all good here. Like, at what point do you think, like, okay, this dude was in the dressing room with us. This guy was on the ice with us. Like, at what point do you say, okay, maybe we're all at risk here. Maybe we've all been in contact. And honestly, like I don't know. I'm not a medical expert at all. I cover sports, but like, how do we know that Adam Gaudette was patient zero?
Yeah.
Like walk me through the process of eliminating and tracing that he is patient zero when any number of them could have got it from wherever and got it in the dressing room. And maybe he was just the first one to test positive, right? Like, I don't know. That's me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he is patient zero. Maybe they have proven it, but how do you do that?
Maybe there was an asymptomatic patient that got it first and didn't test positive, and Adam got it and tested positive. Like, we know how crazy this disease is. It's literally shut down the entire world last year in March. Like, we know what this disease can do in days, in hours, in minutes. So just trying to jump to like a logical conclusion of, oh, well, he started it, so we should be really mad at him for causing all of us to go through. And like you said,
I couldn't imagine holding bitterness over a guy that's had to go through the exact same thing. You're like,
I hope he gets worse COVID than us. Like, what do people think that it's happening? And
you
like,
could have COVID too, but you go over there and do it.
And it was nice.
I don't know.
It was nice, like you said, for JT Miller to come out and be like, what are you talking about? Like, and so obviously the NHL learned from the morning skate incident, but it looks like the NHL needs to learn a little bit more, because JT Miller does not sound ready to play. Does not sound like the Vancouver Canucks are ready to get back in action on Friday, April 16th against the Edmonton Oilers.
And this is coming from JT Miller, who doesn't have COVID. Like, this is a healthy Miller does not feel ready to play on Friday, right? And that's not because he's like ill prepared. It's because they've been off for 3 weeks.
22 days off. Yeah. He literally said, I walk around the apartment.
Right? Like, he can't go anywhere. He can't do anything. There's nothing that can replicate skating or being on the ice or playing competitive hockey at an NHL level that you can just do in your apartment. Like, I couldn't imagine, and this is, I mean, JT Miller spoke on this too, is like, how do you even fathom that somebody with COVID or like recovered from COVID can come back after 3 weeks off, after fighting that ailment with whatever symptoms they've had. Like, I've heard horrific things for how Quinn Hughes has had COVID, like being on an IV, losing body weight. Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics uses an inhaler before games, a month after recovering from COVID, because he's still feeling effects. This team is nowhere near ready to come back and just jump in after one practice to play games, not just games, back-to-back games, 2 games. And I just, like, I don't know, like, how do you responsibly and reasonably conclude that is a good idea on any level, like, even if it's for the integrity of the game, what kind of product are you about to put out? Like, to me, that's like working at a grocery store and putting a rotten fruit just to have produce available. Like, we know it's going to be bad. You know it's going to be absolutely horrific.
That's all we got. We'll just put it out.
Yeah, you got to have something on the shelves, right? Like, that's where we're at. Like, and I don't want to watch your rotten fruit hockey.
and you mentioned integrity too, right? Like, so like, but like, where does the NHL really have the integrity? Like, is it saying integrity to the players to be like, no, we're just going to back it off? But it's obviously not. It's integrity to the money. They can't cancel the game tomorrow. Like, I mean, I'm more saying the Edmonton game being canceled on the Friday just because it's Friday. It's against Edmonton. The Saturday game against the Leafs, in a prime hockey night in Canada, 4 p.m.
Oh, no way they're canceling.
4 p.m. Pacific, or sorry, 4 p.m. time. Yeah, Pacific time start for us without any other options for hockey night in Canada. There's no way they're canceling.
Well, and 19 games in 31 days is ridiculous, with or without COVID. Like, if this was a fully healthy team, you'd be like, holy, that's a tough schedule. But add in the COVID issue, add in the 3 weeks off, add in the fact that like half these kids aren't even going to be NHL caliber players or NHL ready players. Like, it shouldn't be a bloodbath out there. And that's so not fair. Like I just think right now, or last I checked, Demko and Holtby were both on the COVID list.
Yeah.
So what, we're throwing Mikey DiPietro in his first game all in like over a year. He's going to go in against the Edmonton Oilers, facing against McDavid and Draisaitl, who've had no time off. They're totally fine.
To be fair for Mikey DiPietro, he is used to getting thrown into Canucks colors and getting destroyed.
That's true.
Okay, yes, but yeah,
that's a great precedence for him. That's a glowing endorsement of the Canucks organization.
I have to play Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Don't worry, guys.
Perfect.
How many goals did I give up last time? I'll be fine. I was great in my media.
Right? I know. Like, man, I should have picked Draisaitl and McDavid up in my hockey pools for this game. Just unbelievable.
I think Ken Reed was on Tim and Friends today on Sportsnet and was mentioning, like, he's like, you're gonna be seeing these guys from Edmonton be like, hey, they're gonna go for a hit, and give them a shout and be like, hey, I'm coming, and kind of ease up a bit, because they're all in the same thing. Lots of the people from different teams have gotten COVID, and they know what it's like. They're like, this team has to play 19 games in 31 days, and they just came off a COVID for the entire team minus. It was easier to list who didn't have COVID than it was to list who had COVID. And now they have to get right back into things. So like it's going to be some, if we see hockey on Friday for the Canucks, it's going to be some mercy hockey for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and at what point do you say, okay, well, this product isn't worth, risking the health and safety of everybody for, I mean, if you're the NHL and you're so determined to have the best product available, like, that's the part that boggles me, is like, last year we didn't play all the games.
No.
The regular season was cut short due to COVID. And then we went right into the play-ins, qualifying rounds, and into the playoffs in the bubbles. So who cares? Like, why are we so determined this year to get 56 games so that the Canucks can have meaningless games against Ottawa at like the same time that actual playoffs are starting in other parts of the country, like, or continent? Like, I just like I just thought it was so funny. Like, I listened to the Vancast. This was a couple episodes ago, and this was like Thomas Drance talking about how do you even market and sell those games? Like, you're like, for BC and Alberta regions, you're going to be stuck watching Canucks versus Ottawa, but in every other region, you get to watch Vegas versus Minnesota game 2. Like, you get to watch like all these great playoff matchups, and you get to watch like mean nothing games out of Ottawa and Vancouver. Like, who cares? Like, Ottawa or Vancouver and Calgary, who cares? These teams aren't making the playoffs. Like,
and by that point, they're going to want to lose.
Yeah, just honestly, like, what I would do first off, Canucks should not be playing any games for the rest of the season. They should be done.
No, at that point, I am okay with that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And any team that doesn't finish, just go by point percentage. Then you can determine stuff like draft lottery positioning, count 2 points. Like, it's a forfeiture for all the teams that were going to play the Canucks. So like Edmonton and Toronto, who it like actually kind of matters to, give them the 2 points. Who cares? Like, really? Or like, just go by winning percentage for the whole division. We're all broken up in divisions anyways. So like, who cares if you treat one division mildly differently? Like, it's not going to matter until the Final Four anyways. So like, to me, it's a no-brainer move. It's to do it, but inexcusably, there's three segments that have let the Canucks players down, and that's the organization themselves, the NHLPA, who's, I can't think of anything more useless as a union, and the NHL as a league. Like, if you're those three that have combined together to set this schedule, because it's so important to get these 56 games out, there's no ticket revenue. I get the broadcasting thing, but honestly, like, are they going to kick that big of a fuss over not being able to air Canucks games? Give them some of the other games. Like, Canucks games aren't good anyways, and they're not going to be good. Like, they're going to be so bad, actually. And I worry about the long-term health for any of these players having to go through this.
Throw us some of those, like Florida, Tampa, or Carolina, Tampa, or
hell yeah,
anything in this Central Division. I'll watch some of those games. They're going to be exciting coming down to the end. But yeah, like you said, I mean, it's just it's almost useless. And for a league that almost came out at the beginning of the season and said, okay, hey guys, the standings, just don't get too caught up on those, because we might use point percentage. And then to all of a sudden just be like, hey, we don't care. We need to finish the 56 games. That's so important. It's like, well, it's one team. If not just one, maybe two or three or four or division. It can only be technically six because they played their games against Montreal. But oh no, six teams don't finish all the games. Who cares?
Most of those teams are going to be so close. Yeah. Like you're going to get 52 games out of the Leafs. You're going to get 52 games out of the Ottawa Senators. Like, you're really not missing a whole lot. Like, I think Calgary, there's 5 games. I think they're the most. So there would be 51 games for them. So like the only one that you're really missing out on is the Canucks. In which case, like you said, show us some out of town ones. Show us some ones that we don't get to see all that often. Some exciting hockey, some hockey that actually matters. I would love to watch the Carolina Hurricanes just on Sportsnet Pacific. Like, that would be awesome.
That would be.
But instead, we're going to be watching diluted hockey that just feels bad to watch. Like, I don't want to feel guilty watching hockey. Like, that's how I'm going to feel. I already feel that way.
We're going to maybe be watching a Canucks roster that features Mikey DiPietro as the starting goalie and Arturs Silovs as the backup. A curious cast of whoever else is healthy. We might get to see. Remember Travis Boyd?
Yeah,
we might get to see Travis Boyd.
I haven't got to see him yet.
So I'm joined by.
Could you imagine he gets claimed by Canucks and then he doesn't even get to play that season?
Oh my God. He's like, why did I come to Vancouver?
He's like, God, just send me back. Send me back to Toronto. I'll be on the taxi squad.
Yeah, he's like, hey, I get the ring if I'm on the taxi squad. So I'm joined by Sean Warren of Area 51 podcast, and we'll get back into the Canucks a little bit later. But obviously, you've been paying attention to the rest of the conferences and the NHL. Who you're liking? Who are your favorites this year?
Oh man. Okay, so going into the season, I've really liked 4 teams in particular, and as the season's gone on,
will be pretty similar to my team, I would imagine.
Yeah, probably we might even have the same 4. So these 4 I've really liked right from the outset, and it's awesome to see just how their seasons have gone. There's been a few surprises as well, but Carolina, Colorado, Tampa Bay, of course, and Toronto. I really liked how their teams were set up. I think that they're 4 of the best managed teams as well. I think that just for not even just this season, but for just future success and for the most part, what they did at the deadline, like everything's been really smart and really hard to find fault with. And I think it's exciting that even in a season like this, where there's just so many questions and so much doubt around everything, that there are still teams that are gunning for it and are willing to pay up to make runs like that. And I mean, it's funny to say that while mentioning Carolina and Colorado, who have like ample cap space and didn't even get close to using it all, but they're just so unbelievably competitive as already that like they didn't really need to. That's just how well managed they are. They didn't need to spend right to the cap to ice one of the best rosters in the league. So those were kind of the four that stood out to me right at the get-go. Florida's been very surprising. Loved how their season's gone so far and how exciting that is. Vegas looks pretty good, but going through Colorado is going to be very tough.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny. There's like, it feels like there's two divisions that are kind of walks. Like you can kind of just waltz your way right to the Final Four if you're really strong. And then there's two divisions that are just going to be bloodbaths between two teams. Like the Carolina-Tampa matchup is going to be phenomenal. I hope we get to see that in a playoff series. Colorado-Vegas, I hope the same. I hope we get to see that in the series because it's going to be just absolutely unbelievable hockey. But Toronto and like maybe aside from that, the other division being like Washington or the Islanders, like that just feels like a much lesser matchup compared to the other two divisions.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. My four teams, I had three of the four with you. I went with I liked Vegas instead of Carolina. But yeah, as you said, yeah, either one of Vegas or Colorado, they're going to be out in the conference semifinals as they're hopefully going to get a matchup. That's going to be an amazing matchup if we get that. And
I wanted that last year and we were robbed of it. So I'd just be Dallas. Stoked to see it this year. I know, friggin' Dallas.
And
good on them. But
Dallas, thankfully, you're down at the bottom, so you don't have to ruin our Colorado Vegas Golden Knights matchup because that is going to be such amazing hockey.
Give the people what they want.
Yes,
that's what we want is Colorado and Vegas. That's the matchup I want.
And there's like two teams, probably two of the only teams in, I guess, the traditional Western Conference that are doing things properly.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty that are contending, right? Like, I think teams like LA is going to be just
they're
mind-blowing good.
Yeah.
I look at their prospect cupboard and I get shivers thinking about like Benning's 2-year plan and how good LA is going to be starting at that point as well. And Colorado and Vegas.
LA basically said, wait, what is Colorado doing? Let's do that.
Yeah, that looks good.
That looks a lot better than what some of the other teams are doing. Let's do what Colorado is doing. And yeah, no, they're going to be, LA's going to be scary.
Like you look at their center depth and you just start laughing because it's just an embarrassment of riches. Like, and I just remember thinking like Canucks traded Tyler Madden because they felt like they were good at center. They traded Tyler Madden to the LA Kings where they already have Byfield and Turcotte.
And here are the Canucks will most likely re-sign Brandon Sutter because they don't have depth at center.
I got asked the other day, they're like, Sean, if the lineup of the Canucks roster stays as is and they don't re-sign Sutter, who's the Canucks third line center? And I was like, Boyd? I think it's Boyd. Like
I'm seeing a lot of like, okay, well, we'll move Miller down. Miller can be a 3C for the Canucks, and the Canucks can have 3 good scoring lines. I'm like, that is a great idea 2 years ago before you signed a whole bevy of fourth line players for terrible contracts. You're never going to be able to field 3 solid scoring lines with that kind of people on the books, that kind of contracts. So it's a great thought, but
it's a great thought if you have Tyler Toffoli.
It's a great thought if you have Tyler Toffoli. Even Josh Levo is a top 9 player in that kind of thing. And guess what? Josh Levo is a pretty cheap player to sign. So that brings me to my next point about Elliot Friedman reporting that the Canucks will most likely stick with Jim Benning for the next season. Albert Einstein defined insanity as doing the same thing over and over again without getting different or expecting different results. Sean, is that what we're getting here with Jim Benning now? Because it really seems like it.
First off, love that lead in. Absolutely, that is what's happening. It is. by definition insanity to continue down this well. Like we've already seen this path. We know what it leads to. We know that it doesn't give or yield anything good. Like just as a very, very rapid fire recap, we can turn this thing around quickly. We have seen him sign guys like Verbata and Miller in an attempt to capitalize on the Sedin's career window and help them compete one more time. That failed. Sedin's retire. That's what we were waiting for. Now we weren't trying to compete. We were just kind of stuck in limbo with the Sedins. They were holding us back, actually. These Hall of Fame players were holding us back. Now we can actually do what we want to do. This is like 4 years into his tenure. Now we can do what we want to do. Let's try to continue making the playoffs, fail, get a top 10 pick, and call that a rebuild. And then here we are where he goes all in on last season, right before COVID hit, and people can make out that was good or bad for the run or whatever. The fact was the Canucks were slipping out of the playoffs. They were saved by COVID, and able to actually make the playoffs. They faced a very uninspired St. Louis team and then got throttled by Vegas in what was a long, almost like that was a death march. Like that was a Siberian death march. It was a series.
I love how people call it like, wait, they took the Canucks to 7, or they took the Vegas Golden Knights to 7 games. No, Vegas Golden Knights thrung out 7 games where they just physically dominated the Canucks on every single facet of a hockey game. And then there was Thatcher Demko, like you said. It
was unbelievable.
There was literally nothing to that series but Thatcher Demko. They couldn't do anything against Vegas.
I was basically the entire series, as soon as Demko took over, I spent it curled up in a ball on my couch praying that Thatcher Demko would be okay. Like, that was it. Like, what else do you have to do? He was the only guy performing. Everybody else was stuck in their own zone. Like, he was the only guy holding them in. It was unbelievable. Like, I will never forget that. And
I think there's so much people that just kind of want to blow out the fact that the Canucks were literally fighting for a playoff spot. If the playoffs had been decided on points percentage, they would have gotten on points percentage, but not points, if I believe. And they were on a decline with Jacob Markstrom just getting injured, and Thatcher Demko
and Tanev too.
And Tanev and Thatcher Demko was playing. That's right, because he just announced as soon as the break was on that he was injured and would have been out for a bit. So to even think that the Canucks
and Toffoli was already injured, and it was starting to fall apart really quick.
And then we have Jim Bennett coming out and saying that it's a 2-year plan, so we'll be competitive in 2 years. But then he signs Tanner Pearson to a 3-year extension for over $3 million, and it's just like Sam brought it up. Samantha Chang, one of your contributors on the Point Shot Hockey podcast, brought it up, and also the broadcast as well brought it up that where is this? Like, he's literally flip-flopping every day. He has no idea what he's doing as a general manager. And you can see it by the moves that are made all the time, by what he talks about. He has no literal direction of where this team going. He's like, well, we seemed pretty good last year, so I'm going to make this move. Like, the Tanner Pearson contract extension is absolutely mind-boggling. I was so excited. That was one of the contracts that I have circled and was like, okay, coming off the books. Yeah. Coming off the books. The Canucks will have room to make sign Jason Spezza at $750,000 a year.
We're going into another buyer's market for free agency, right? Like, this is the thing. I know, a lot of people like to point to last summer and say that Jim's plans were inhibited by COVID, and that's why he wasn't able to sign Toffoli and whoever else, right? He qualified Jake Virtanen and decided to sign Holtby for $4 million. Like, he signed guys that really didn't need to be signed, or he shouldn't have signed, and he let go guys like Levo and Toffoli that really, really hurt this club. Even Domingue, right? Like nobody talks about Domingue.
Yeah, there's
but the fact that DiPietro is on the taxi squad, not playing any games, and if it weren't for whatever crazy, like psychotic situation we're in right now, where we could be seeing DiPietro as a starter, he would go 18 months without any sort of game action as a 21-year-old goaltender. That was the plan going into this. Like if COVID outbreak didn't happen, Canucks continued on their way, it would be 18 months between game action for him. At best, like that would be what we're looking at for a 21-year-old goaltender. And I just think like Toffoli's hit would have been higher. Everybody's hit would have been higher. There were cheaper options available. There was we talk about Verhaeghe all the time, but Verhaeghe signed for 2 years, $1 million per year, and he's dominating in Florida. Like those options are available, but yet and we're going to go into that again. Right? Like we're going into that one more time, and Tanner Pearson is somehow a priority, and somebody that was signed before Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes, before the coach, before Ian Clark,
the goaltending coach, before the rest of the coach, before more important pieces. Like how is Tanner Pearson that high on your priority list?
Well, and the baffling part is, like I said, the only way for bad contracts to end or come off your books is to stop signing them, right? Stop signing these bad contracts. Like Tanner Pearson at best is going to be a third-line winger next year because Podkolzin's coming, right? Podkolzin's coming over. You can't tell me Pearson's going to play over Podkolzin. No way. Hoaglander's playing over Pearson right now, right? And Podkolzin is he just put in a beastly playoffs in the KHL. He's a big, very much NHL ready player. I'm very excited for Podkolzin. And so we're now allocating even more funds to our bottom six. People are, and these are oh man, I'm so wound up over this that I can't even speak and get my thoughts in order. Okay. So last year, when Toffoli walked and wanted to take a discount to stay, and he walked, people said we didn't need him. Hoaglander's here. And I said, that's ludicrous. We need both, right? What's better than one? Two. So Toffoli would have been an awesome fit. Anyways, so he leaves, and then Pearson gets re-signed because Podkolzin needs insulating. What drugs are we on right now that Pearson is insulating anything from Podkolzin? Podkolzin does not need Tanner Pearson. I can assure you of that.
And this is the perfect example of not having a plan whatsoever as a general manager. You're literally saying, okay, well, we're going to get Podkolzin in as soon as we can. Well, where's he going to play? Haven't you looked at that? Haven't you actually slotted in your depth chart for the next year? Even
if you're not doing 2 years from now, 1 year, please. 1 year. At this point, 1 year in advance.
Okay, so we need him. Where is Tanner Pearson on your top six over Podkolzin? I don't understand that. You've just literally said you can't wait to get him over. You're going to develop him. You're going to develop the future. Now you're also giving the message that, we're 2 years away, but we want to sign old extended veterans to contracts because they won Stanley Cup and they're great room guys. And also, and then just to elaborate on the mixed messages, it's been a tough, trying time for everybody catching COVID. We're not going to be making any moves at the trade deadline. Not going to be making stuff at the trade deadline. Oh, and we're going to trade out a couple people at the trade deadline.
Yeah, most notably Patient Zero. I kind of refer to Jim Benning's regime or planning technique as a castaway plan. He's Tom Hanks, he's on the raft, and just wherever the wind and the sea takes him, that's the plan, baby. That's where we're going.
Float. We're gonna go over here. Okay, hey, we got pretty close that time. We're gonna float over here. Okay, we're not doing good. We're gonna float back over here.
No, that was the plan the whole time. The plan the whole time was to end up back on the beach rebuilding again. Like it's baffling to me because like you said, I think for most fans, we just want to see a direction. I don't care if the plan is 2 years from now. Like if a new GM came in today and said it is going to take 2 years, Jim was right on that, I'd be like, okay, like no problem. Show me the action, the plan, the direction,
the plan
that is making 2 years from now happen, right?
Yes.
So for like Jim Benning, like just for recent timeline, he comes out, he says 2 years, he signs Thatcher Demko, pretty much universally loved, right? Like we all love that we were able to score him on term, a reasonable cap hit, I think, for what he's going to be able to bring for future. It's a bit of a gamble, but that's the kind of gamble that I would prefer him to take.
Yeah.
And then right after that, he signs Pearson, and you're like, okay, wait a minute, like wait just a second. We have the Lotto line. We have Podkolzin, Höglander, and Horvat. So that makes Pearson, at best, our 7th best forward. We're going to pay him 3.25 for 3 more years. That brings us into that 2-year window. He's going to be 31 years old when this team is contending. This doesn't add up. Like he's already declining. This is already a down year for him. And people are like, oh, it's because... Oh, this is my favorite part. In the press conference explaining the Pearson signing, he said, we need guys like him for when we have back-to-backs and hard schedules in the playoffs. Okay, why is he struggling this year? Oh, because there's so many back-to-backs and a hard schedule. It's not good for him.
What is he?
What?
I don't understand why he even does PR. Like, and then
Why do you speak?
signing Tanner Pearson's contract for the 3 years and saying, like you said, the 7th best winger or the 7th best forward for the Canucks. Well, you could have just
at best,
you could have just let his contract expire, or even better yet, trade him for an asset, and you could have kept Adam Gaudette, who would have been your 7th best probably forward and has more of a potential upside since he kind of just figured out his actual medical issues with gaining weight and body and stuff. So yeah, just like it
teams wanted Pearson
and
teams wanted Pearson.
Trying to chart out this stuff and looking at like, it's like the Charlie Day meme where he's like trying to point to everything and trying to like figure it out. And like, that's what trying to be a Canucks fan and following Jim Benning's moves are like. And it's just baffling. At least we can both enjoy great hockey in the other divisions as well. And, and throughout the other teams. And I know that you are big into other sports as so as negative as as the season has been, a big positive has been the emergence of the Area 51 network.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun, and we've really this last couple months. Wow, yeah, I guess it's already been a couple months now. Has been a blur. It's been a lot of fun, just being able to build it and see different ideas kind of come to life that we've been working on for a long time. And it's a lot of things that I've been thinking about and wanting to eventually get to at some point. And like for me, my personality is very much like measure 3 times, cut once. I like to make sure that when I do make a move that I know exactly kind of what I have it envisioned in my mind. I know what it looks like. I know every step of the process. I know like how I want it to feel. I know what I want it to look like. And I know that it's not going to all happen all at once, but I like to be as prepared as I can for anything like that. So it does take time for us to roll things out, but when we do, it just makes it feel that much more special. And I know like the support that we've been able to get for each project, each podcast that comes and joins us, the website itself, anything like that has just been phenomenal and really has kind of inspired and pushed us to move the way that we have. And that's just, I think that's probably the most rewarding part about it, is just seeing the reaction and the support being there. And that's, we're very fortunate to be in this market for that reason. I think we are in a market that really values sports media, sports content, and they want it on demand all the time. They want as much as they could possibly intake, and it could be overwhelming sometimes to try to keep up with. But it's special to be in a market that cares to that extent, and like it's not uncommon to have one person that listens to 13 different Canucks podcasts, right? Like, and that's just so awesome. Like, the Canucks genuinely are not that interesting to listen to for that much time, but we all are up to debate every single aspect of their entire history, then their future direction, every hour of every day. And I think that's super special. And after TSN folded, I think it's become a big priority to a lot of consumers and a lot of fans and people to really reach out and support stuff. And I hope that continues. I hope people do continue to prioritize that, because it's what makes Vancouver and this area such a special market to be a creator in.
It is really nice to see, and you see so much support from everybody, from all the different people involved in things, and they're quite happy to help out, whether it's somebody's, say, first time and they're just doing a podcast for the first time, or whether they've been doing it for a while, or whether they just, like, need an advice on something like that. It's really neat to see. And I couldn't imagine any market that doesn't have so many different voices and opinions on sports, because it only makes our sport market better to be able to turn on, like you said, 13, 14, however many it is now, probably more than that. It's probably like 30 or 40. But just different opinions on the Vancouver Canucks, what people are thinking on local Vancouver sports, on sports in general, on what they're passionate about, on NFL. I know one of the ones you just brought on is the Hawks Nest podcast, and they cover the Seattle Seahawks, who I happen to hate because I'm a Rams fan. But I think it's great stuff what they're doing, and because we have a lot of Seahawks fans up in Vancouver and in British Columbia, so it's been so great to see what you guys are doing with Area 51 and just letting those voices out and adding more sports opinion for everybody.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I know, like, one of the big things that I think makes Vancouver so special is the diversity in voices, and like, not everybody's going to have the same opinions. And I think that listening to different opinions and different thought processes, and that's only going to make your opinion more well-rounded, listening to all those things and listening to those arguments and those thoughts. And like, I know for myself, like, I haven't historically been a big football guy or lacrosse guy or soccer guy, right? But I've been able to learn so much about those things because of the content that's being created out of this network, and being able to listen to the Hawks Nest podcast and be like, okay, yeah, I can understand that role a little bit better, or I understand how that player fits in here, or how that philosophy would really reshape the offense or the defense. And then you take in, like, Avid Discussers is going to be doing a lot of lacrosse stuff for the Warriors. We've got Cap Space Wins Cups that's doing F1 stuff. F1 is totally new animal for me. Like, I don't know squat about F1. I don't know if I could even really, before listening to their stuff, tell you one driver, right? Like, I know nothing about the sport. So listening to them kind of do like a breakdown series, they're doing like a F1 101, just kind of introducing people to the sport. And I think that's so cool. So just being able to diversify not just the voices, but the content, and realizing that we're blessed to be in a very beautiful part of the world with a lot of great sports to cover, and being able to kind of cover those so that everybody has one spot that they can go and they know that sport's going to be covered. That's kind of my dream for Area 51.
Well, that's cool. And like you said, I mean, to be able to cover all sports and give people who want to learn more about F1 if they don't know it, maybe, or want to get interested, because I mean it's exciting stuff. And like you said, lacrosse, that's another great sport. I mean, for people who don't watch cricket is probably one of the most exciting sports that you'll ever watch. But do you see coverage of cricket in North America? No. But if you go out and actually watch it, you're going to be like, oh wow, like that's some amazing stuff. So like, just to be able to broaden the horizon of everything is great. And I really love that, because I know one of the reasons that I love to work with my network at Sports Talkline is on my show, they say, hey, go ahead. You want to do a show about a Canadian track and field athlete? Go ahead and do it. You want to do a snowboarding show? Go ahead and do it. You want to talk about hockey? Fill your boots. Just
awesome.
Just do your thing. So, it's great to hear you guys, like you said, you mentioned the Caps Base Wins Cups. You mentioned Avid Discussers, Point Show Hockey. You have Maxime Fossey covering the Whitecaps now as well.
He's been phenomenal. Yeah.
Yes. I have to give Maxime a bit of a rip though, because he did in one of the very first interviews with Mark Dos Santos, where we had the immediate availability. He asked him if he was going to be able to converse with the Portuguese players very well.
Gotcha.
To which, of course, the Portuguese coach answered, yes, I'm Portuguese.
I am Portuguese.
So it was a little bit of a trying moment for Maxime, but we've all had them. I think I shared my embarrassing one with him after the fact, but he's doing a great job, and really enjoyed getting to work with him in the Whitecap stuff. So,
oh yeah, and I mean that's been such a breath of fresh air for us. Like we've got the blog at Area 51 as well, and I want to be able to continue to have that open and available for people that want to. Perhaps they're just dabbling in writing. Perhaps they just want to write one article. They've got some thoughts that they want to share. Perhaps they want to seriously write, but they haven't had a platform to do so. And I know for myself, when I was first starting out writing, I had to create like my own little blog so that I had somewhere to publish work so that I can then share it with other sites that to even get on. So just to give them some kind of platform that they can get a little bit more clicks, they get a little bit more views for their work that they're doing, and they have somewhere to direct for examples for their little portfolio that they get to build, and then to have guys like Maxime come in and to be regulars, providing us with content that otherwise wasn't being provided on Area 51. We don't have any podcasts or anybody doing Whitecaps coverage, and that was a huge hole. It's something that I really wanted to have filled. So for him to come in and do what he's done, it's just been phenomenal. And I'm very lucky to be able to have him supply that for us there.
Well, that's fantastic. And I love that what you're doing too with the providing your website for people who want to do the writing. So where can they get a hold of that? If there's somebody that maybe wants to pitch something out, can they get a hold of you on Twitter, or can they go to the website directly?
If they get a hold of me on Twitter, that'd be the best way. They could also email on the website. We have a contact page that they can reach me at my contacts, either at the network email or at Twitter. And then I'll help, whether it be just kind of formulating an idea, or I edit the articles. I'll help tweak things so that it's something that you could be proud of at the end of the day and feel happy to share with everybody. And it's been cool. Like I've had some people that have posted articles and after they're like, it was on my bucket list to have an article published, and now I've done that. And it's nice. I think that's such a cool thing that, such a little thing from my standpoint for what I can do, that's been able to give that to them and make that possible for them. So, I mean, yeah, if you're interested in writing, by all means, please contact me, and then we can get started. And it doesn't have to be any particular sport. Doesn't matter. We've got one We've got Kevin Kothra, who does like Raptors and NBA stuff for us. We've got Maxime that does the Whitecaps. We've got I think Kevin Sorensen is the one who's done the most so far for Canucks contributions, but it's wide open. Like whatever you kind of want to do, let me know, and then I'll help you kind of formulate that idea to make it the best that it can be, and then happy to throw it up on the website and for you.
Well, that's fantastic. So he can be reached on Twitter at Sean Warren 234. Of course, if you don't already follow him, make sure to check him out on Twitter. So Sean, thank you so much for chatting. As I look down at the clock, and we have surpassed much longer than I initially told you we'd be chatting for, and much longer in the green room. But I'm sure we both knew that was going to happen tonight.
Yeah, pretty fair. I mean, I feel like we could talk all night. I love that. I think that's the best. These kind of conversations are what makes doing what we do a lot of fun. So. It
is absolutely. And so I have been so happy to be joined by Sean Warren of Area 51, friend of the show. It's the second time on. More than welcome back anytime you want to chat sports, Sean. And apparently I'm my next NBA insider too.
Happy to come on and talk any sports. It'll be fun.
So thank you very much, Sean, and everybody make sure to check out his work at the Area 51 Network and all his branches of many podcasts that are out now. There'll be links and clicks down at the bottom that you can find all those and stuff to the website. So thank you very much, Sean, and hope you have a great day.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
All right, so I'm super excited to chat with Sean Warren today about Vancouver Canucks trade deadline, pretty much everything Canucks, as we look ahead to what is supposed to be their return to play Friday, April 16th. It's the second time I screwed up on that. April 16th against the Edmonton Oilers. But we will see where that comes, as even doing this interview, there has come word that the Canucks were holding a Zoom meeting with the NHL Players Association. So might be some more word coming down from that tomorrow. So hope that everyone enjoyed this show. If you haven't already, like I said, make sure to like the video down at the bottom, comment along, and let me know what you thought. For the Unnamed Sports Show, I have been your host, Joshua Griffith. And remember, love sports, all sports.